record on this computer. There we go. Right, so the plan for today is to go through British Rowing's stuff on cold water and how to deal with it. So the way BR do things is they start out by going through the effects of falling into cold water, what to expect, how to avoid falling into cold water in the first place. And only if all of that fails, do you talk about how to get back out of the boat if you go in. So I do mock British rowing on occasion, but one of the things they do very well is safety. They take what is basically sit yourself in a very thin fiberglass hull and throw yourselves backwards down a river at speed. And they do make that very safe. There's very few injuries and almost no actual deaths at all across rowing. And part of the reason is they do keep a database of what might go wrong, and they actually learn from their mistakes, which is something I like to see. So a couple of general comments before we get started. So this is British Rowing's course. So it is for any river in the UK. Okay, it's for big, rivers like the Cam, for winding off down the Dee somewhere with no one around. It's for big rivers like the Thames. It's even for the lunatics who go do coastal rowing and surfing over waves. So it does rather talk about the worst possible case, because it talks about what happens if you go into the North Sea in January. Right? Do not be too alarmed when it starts talking about that. It is just telling you what might happen in the very, very worst case. By and large, the worst what happens when you capsize is you make a bit of a fool of yourself and you're a little bit cold. This is just going through what will happen if you don't take it seriously. Okay, so cold water. These slides are available. They'll come around later. Well, this document on British Rowing. So immersion can occur when, capsizes, fair enough. Doesn't have to be. It is entirely possible to have an ejector crab and fall out of a boat without anyone else in it. Won't happen much on the Cam, but you can swamp boats and actually sink them. If any of you were watching the boat race a couple of years ago, you remember the Cambridge women's crew basically submerged. They managed to power a completely sunken boat to safety. That was quite impressive. They did not win. That's fair to say. People fall overboard. People fall off the launch. People fall off the landing stage. I have yet to be that coach. It does occasionally happen. Everyone needs to be aware of the possibility. All right, where are we going? Usual British rowing. Everyone should assess and manage the risks. It's tedious, but that's how we keep things safe. Boom, boom. What is cold water? Come on, BR. You can. We can dumb things up just a little bit. The important point to note here is the colder the water gets, the more it's going to become a problem. I'm assuming everyone here has at some point jumped into cold water. I know at least one of you does it for fun. The colder it gets, the more seriously you need to take it. If you're looking down at sort of 12, 10 degrees, 5 degrees, that's where you need to get out the water quite promptly. Yeah. Interesting things. Water has 24 times the thermal conductivity of air. I don't know how you measure that. That sounds way too physics for me. But yeah, if you go in, you are going to lose heat the longer you stay in the water. The other point I was going to make is this isn't just valuable for rowers. This is valuable for bank parties. If someone goes in near you, someone completely unrelated to your outing goes in, helps know what you need to do, what you need to look out for. Essentials of sea survival. I can give you those survival times in cold water thing if you want, but it's not it's not rocket science. The colder the water is, the quicker you got to do something about it. Right, we start to get into the interesting bits now. So this is where we get into what happens when you jump into cold water, deliberately or otherwise. Okay, these are physiological reactions. Your body is going to do them pretty much whether you like it or not. About the only way to damp them down is to practice jumping into cold water. Again, some people do this for fun, but in general, I prefer we just didn't jump into cold water at all. Oh, they're going to be annoying about this. So the first thing that you need, and the thing you need to be the most aware of, is this chap here: rapid breathing, hyperventilation. If the shower suddenly runs out of hot water and you suddenly get full cold, you gasp. Yeah, that's not just eek, oh my word, it's cold. It's the oh, that's cold. That's a physiological reaction. It's very hard to stop. Okay, why evolution has decided to make it so that if you drop into cold water, your first response is to inhale uncontrollably. Yeah, I wouldn't have designed it like that, but that's how it works. Okay, I think it's something along the lines of, if you drop into cold water up to the chest, what you need to do is get out in a hurry, which is where the rapid breathing and the rapid heart rate comes from. Right. Other details. Yes, the rapid heart rate. Yes, the goosebumps. Completely pointless for humans. Again, that's an unnecessary feature. Vasoconstriction, horribly scientific word for your body shuts down the blood supply up to 99%. Again, how you measure that, I have no idea. These three here, all kind of related. You shut down your blood vessels, you start shivering, and your muscles actually stiffen up. Again, your body's just going to do this on your behalf, and it's to warm you up. Yep. Suddenly shaking really tense muscles, you start burning energy and trying to warm your body back up. Finally, yeah, I did say it was a little bit alarmist. If you hit super cold water, your heart starts beating like crazy. It is possible you'll have something cardiac happens. It's something to be aware of, that's all. But whoever these chaps, Golden and Tipton, are, they make this point here. Of all the responses associated with immersion in cold water, we regard the reduction in breath holding on initial immersion as the most dangerous to otherwise fit and healthy individuals. Which sort of makes sense. If you don't inhale any water, you're going to find it quite hard to drown. The thing that's going to make you inhale water is that initial effect. Right. Was another thing I was going to mention on that. I think we'll come back to it. Oh, yeah. Interestingly, I was mentioning British Rowing's safety thing and their habit of recording absolutely every incident and learning from their lessons. Actually getting out of the boat when you capsize, not the primary thing they're worried about. By and large, you're not, assuming the boat is properly adjusted, you're not going to get stuck in your shoes. And if you do, there's a fairly simple trick to get out again. BR regard cold, cold, cold as being much more of a problem. Okay. We will get to how to pull your feet out if you capsize, but I have yet to see anyone get stuck in. I beg your pardon, I have seen it once. That was someone who didn't capsize so much as slide sideways off the seat and land in the water bum first. It's astonishing what reactions novices have, but he ended up sitting in the water with his feet in the boat. Eventually, the boat went over, his feet, the heel restraints did what they should, his feet slid out. I've not seen it happen other than that. Anyway, so we were talking about cold water shock and the stages of. So that initial gasp, gasp, gasp will be 30 seconds, a minute. If you're used to jumping into cold water, you'll gasp like twice. It is a short-lived thing, and the single thing you need to take away is it will go away. Okay, if you can just keep your head above the water, the gasping will subside. Your body will go, okay, we're doing cold water now. I will calm down. Right? What is drowning? Come on, BR. Really, we can go a little bit more intelligent than this. But yes, breathing is impaired. Again, apologies for the slightly fatal drowning tone of this. This again is what you need to know might happen in the very worst case. Also, different pints of immersion and rescue. I might send them some feedback. So, immediate physiological responses to going kersplosh. The initial gasp, gasp, gasp reaction. Then there's what I was talking about with the muscles. Okay, you will shiver, you'll tense up, the blood flow to your limbs will shut down. That is your body being perfectly sensible and going, I will conserve the organs, please. Toes are secondary. But it means you're going to find it harder to move arms and legs. Again, so long as you're aware that's happening, that's fine. You are not intending to be in the water for 15 minutes. If you can get away with it, you're not intending to be in the water for 3 minutes. If for some reason you can't get out of the water, hypothermia starts to be a thing. And there's a whole section here which you can read at your leisure on the effects of hypothermia and what to watch out for. The shivering, the blue lips, and so on. Stage 4, again, we are talking here, if you have been in the water for half an hour, you have inhaled some water, you are in a bit of a bad way. You want someone to be watching out for you afterwards. It is possible that your body will, after an hour or so, will go, I am no longer in a panic. I can shut down and recover. And you'll have a dizzy spell and fall over. If you end up, in any kind of difficulty, if you've inhaled a lot of water, you've got seriously cold, you want someone watching you for the rest of the day. Likewise, if someone you know has gone in, make sure they get home and have someone watching them safely. I think this is now going to go through broadly what I've just said. Yeah, cold water shock, receptors on your skin just trigger gasp. Dum, dum, dum. Hyperventilation can cause dizziness, confusion, add to a feeling of panic. So that's key there. If you start to panic and flap around, then you're not likely to do anything very productive. What we're trying to do with this, what BR is trying to do here, is make sure you know, here are the effects that are going to happen, whether I like it or not. I know what's going to happen. I know how to deal with it and move on, get myself out of the water and safe as quickly as possible. Remain calm. Yeah, that's easy for you to say, BR. But it is serious. If you remember what's happened, what I've been talking about here, you go through the sequence of things we'll discuss later, it should not be a problem. Reducing the risk from cold shock. Automatic life jackets, like I said, this is for every boat club in the country. This is for the people who row off the Outer Hebrides. We don't even own any automatic life jackets at Cantabs, because if you get in a bow loading boat at Cox's seat with a automatic life jacket, you're going to struggle to get out. I think they've taken some notes from the yachting people here, where you really, really want an automatic life jacket. If you can keep your head and face out of the water, so much the better. Expect this. That's the key there. Expect this to happen. All right. Okay. Everyone's firmly on mute and listening to me talk. Do feel free to ask questions. Dum dum. Oh yes. practice an immersion drill in a warm pool. That is a lovely idea if I had any idea how to organize a capsize drill. I do not know how we can book a pool to go and put our boats in. I've not heard Cantabs offer one since I've joined. Maybe I should chase that up, but I've been meaning to do it for ages. I suspect I would get an awful lot of interest, so I'm working on that one. Okay, done. Short-term immersion. Remember I said once you're done gasping, your muscles are going to be tight, seizing up. It's going to be tricky to move around, which is what we're going through here. Your limbs cool quickly. Dexterity in your fingers will start to go, holding on to throw lines. We'll come to throw lines later. Stuff will get worse as you go along. Ooh. There's a chat that I can't see. Could we do capsize drills in the river in the summer? Yes, although the risk assessment has things to say about deliberately jumping in the cam. You don't want to drink that stuff if you can avoid it. Or Milton Park, that is also a possibility. I don't know what we'd need to do to get boats in there, but yeah, it's possible. One of the risks of going in, which is not generally life-threatening, is the number of bugs that live in the cam. Which I believe my phrase was, some of those can beat up coronavirus and steal its lunch money. Billy will tell you all about what you can ingest, and in fact Will Cherry, for those of you who wrote Senior Women. Yeah, drinking that stuff ain't recommended. Boom. If this thing actually showed me the chat when I clicked the chat button, to make life much easier. Whatever. I think that's done. So yes, key point there, ability to swim in warm water, not related to your ability to swim in cold water. If your body reacts particularly strongly and shuts the arms and legs down particularly seriously, your swimming will get worse. You do, I should add, all need to be able to swim. You should have filled out a form when you came to Cantabs. If you can't swim, now would be the time to mention it. We can make accommodations, but it will probably involve you rowing in a life jacket at all times. I would recommend swimming lessons rather than trying to swim life jackets. Yeah, cold water makes you adopt a more upright position. Fair point. Not overly relevant, but yes. I love this section here. I'm going to read it out for the benefit of the record. As your breathing speeds up and your ability to swim is impaired, so your feelings of panic rise, causing an increase in your breathing rate and impair your swimming still further. This can become something of a downward spiral. Beautiful phrasing, BR. Thank you for improving everyone's confidence there. It is true that if you get stuck in what the senior women's coach refers to as doom spiral, it's not going to be great. Again, the reason we go through this is so that you know what's going to happen. You know that your breathing is going to speed up, your arms are going to shut down. How to reduce the risk, because again, that's what we want to do. Consider wearing an automatically inflating life jacket if you're rowing in Scotland. Remain with the boat. So anyone who's done any kind of sort of yachting, rowing in big boats, yeah, you stay with the boat at all times. That is basically your life raft. You don't leave that unless sitting in the boat is a worse option. The second half of this will go through more about how to get yourself out of the water and onto the boat. But remember what we saw earlier, air, for all that cold breezes feel cold, will wick heat away from you much, much slower than being in the water. Even if you're in cold, wet clothes, still better to be on top of the boat than in the water. All right. Get your body out of the water before the cold does for your grip and affects you. Okay. What was I going there? Yeah. On that note, get your body out of the water even if you're wet. Most good kit these days, sort of lycra thermal kit, is actually quite insulating even when it's wet. And once the wet garment has warmed up, it has a wetsuit type effect. You actually end up with warm water near your skin, and water is quite insulating. I have had someone go in January. He didn't do one of his gates up. And it's entirely possible to row a boat with the gate completely flipped open. He got to the A14 bridge before finally having to use it for balance, and then just went immediately. He was wearing very nice merino wool base layer and another layer over the top. And he basically just hopped back in the boat out of sort of 8-degree water and went, "No, Dave, I'm fine to carry on. I'm an absolute idiot, but I'm fine to carry on." And he carried on his outing. So wear more layers rather than less, because it will have an insulating effect even when it's sopping wet. Happy with that? Cool. Speaking of long-term immersion leading to hypothermia, the risk of drowning due to long-term immersion should be minimal. Yes, it should, British Rowing. Well done. Good answer. You should not be spending 15 minutes in the water. There should have been a plan that gets you out before then. More likely is you'll find out about this on the way back to the boathouse or on the way home. You start shivering. Oh, would you look at that? They're way ahead of me. Continues to be a risk once you're out of the water. Boom, boom, boom. Further information later, which I won't dwell on because it's table after table of symptoms and you can read that on your own. But the key thing to take away here is the risk of hypothermia hasn't gone away until you've got properly warm and dry. Note here that if your fingers are a bit cold and you're a bit shivery, that is very mild hypothermia. That's not a concern. It's not going to be bad until it's much worse than that. Again, British Rowing is going through the very worst cases here. It helps you to know those. Dum, dum, dum. Yeah, post-rescue collapse. A drop in blood pressure upon rescue. That's a bit vague, isn't it, British Rowing? Basically, yes. Once your body has finished going into full-on fight or flight mode and come back down, yeah, you may keel over. Again, in practice, what that means is make sure you tell someone, make sure someone's watching out for you for the rest of the day. Feel free to go, "Oh, I've fallen in and I'm really cold." Milk that for all the sympathy it's worth. Again, this is where they've been talking to the Royal Yachting Association. Lift the individual out of the water in a horizontal position. That is if you've gone into the Atlantic in February and been there for a couple of minutes. If someone really is so cold that they need pulling out of the river, yeah, pull them out, wrap them up, call an ambulance. As a side note, if any of you are interested in doing first aid, things like St. John's emergency first aid at work, they do cover drowning, hypothermia, and all the other miscellaneous cuts and bruises you can collect at rowing. If you're concerned about how to deal with this, I can't exactly, I'm not a first aid trainer, but I can tell you the St. John's courses are really good for giving you the confidence of, right, I know what I should be doing. Dum-dum. Substantial risks to life. Well, yeah, okay. Yes, that is correct, but moderate and severe hypothermia are, you will know if someone has severe hypothermia. That you don't need telling that they'll need an ambulance. Hang on. Oh, well done, Barbara. You found the cold shock and swimming failure video. Much the same way as we are all entertained by people capsizing, videos of the US Marines sort of pushing people into freezing cold water and so on. It is instructive. Maybe a little bit sadistic to watch, but useful. The first 3 stages, which are probably in the video that Barbara just posted, breathing will be under control after a minute. Okay. 10 minutes depending on water temperature. But yeah, 10 minutes to get yourself somewhere where you're not going to freeze. An hour to get yourself warm again. 1 minute, 10 minutes, 1 hour. That's a nice, easy way to remember it. Person wearing a life jacket may gain an extra hour. Again, that's the Royal Yachting Association in the Irish Sea in winter. Don't take that too seriously. Right. So, brief break. Everyone still seems perfectly happy. I think some of you might even be taking notes. This is good stuff. Right. So, next step is, so we know what's going to happen if we go in the water and for some reason decide to not get out. We know what effect it's going to have physiologically. What do we do about it? There's an awful lot of information here that I don't really need to read out word for word for you. I will mention BR's general approach of taking risk split. Okay, it's the standard risk assessment thing. Split it into 2 things: barriers and controls. How do I prevent going in the water in the first place? A barrier to something going wrong. How do I control what happens if I do go in? So ideally, we don't go splash in the first place. If we do go splash, how do we get out of it with a minimum of fuss? So you can control it by developing your swimming ability. Yeah. Swim occasionally. It's good for you. Good all-round exercise. Do an immersion drill. They're not wrong. Decide whether you should wear a personal flotation device. You won't see a single rower on the cam wearing a life jacket, I don't think. Do you have any relevant medical conditions? Again, I would hope you would have considered that by now, but if you know you have a really bad reaction to going into cold water, maybe discuss it. Right, assess. So this is ways to prevent going splash in the first place. Assess the weather, know the local water. Is it going to be windy? Are we actually going to have waves on the reach? Is it going to go freezing cold later? Is it going to pour cold water on you from the ominous clouds? Doesn't mean you have to not get to go out on your outing, but it means you're going to want another layer. You're going to want a waterproof, so on. Know the local water. This is a lot of what I do in the Learn to Scull sessions is what can you do safely where? Things like, do you want to stick to the reach? Do you want to stay outside the CRA so that you can always get to the bank? These are all totally valid ways to barriers to risk. Seek advice and study navigation maps before going on unfamiliar water. They're not wrong, not wrong. We will come to this later. Learn where you can't get out easily. Emergency ambulance points. I'll bet you've never considered how you'd get a vehicle onto the towpath. It's all right. I have a cheat card for you, but I'll leave your mental map of the cam just rattling over that one while I talk on. Carry out an equipment check. I realized before when I was reading through this, I don't necessarily emphasize this as much as I should. But now everyone should be checking their own bit of the boat, making sure it's not going to fall apart on them. But when you're scullers, single scullers, you will only have one person to blame if it turns out the boat wasn't seaworthy to start with. So yeah, you check you've got the right boat, you check it's all in good working order. I will go over a bit more of that probably in another session. We've been talking about wearing the right clothing, multiple layers of clothes. Modern kit is very good. Cotton is a terrible idea. I don't even own a pair of jeans these days because denim is the worst for holding on to water, nice cold water for you. Not again that I've ever gone in the cam while fully clothed, but there you go. Wear a hat. That's entirely valid. You have a lot of blood vessels in your scalp. Make the right equipment choice. Know how to steer and stop the boat in an emergency. You've all been more or less fed up with me trying to teach you to hold the boat up properly and take the run off and how to swerve around people. Yeah, this is the bit I'm keen on. Learn to do an emergency stop, practice it. Guarantee at some point in your career, some idiot will cross in front of you. You will have to slam it on, and you will be glad when you have. Planning. Yeah, plan your session. Valid point, no matter what you're doing. Have an idea what you're doing, how far you'll be out, you know, what drills you might want to do, any hazards you might know of. Yes, college boats, where we know that's a hazard. But as the longer you spend on the cam, you'll start to understand the things like weed, like the tourist boats that potter up and down in the summer, the swans. Mr. Asbo did actually capsize a sculler. I don't think the current crop of swans are being that aggressive, but don't make them aggressive. Plans, check that help is at hand. You can generally assume there will be someone on the towpath, but if you're going out on a rainy Wednesday afternoon, maybe not so much. Again, it's just you need to take these things into account rather than, oh no, there is no one on the reach, I must stop rowing immediately. It's just being sensible. Plan what you'll do. Yep. What should you do? We'll come to that next session. How will you summon assistance? Yeah, mobile phone. Are you fit to row or coach? Again, the phrasing in some of these is just glorious. Do not go out on the water if you are ill or under the influence of alcohol or drugs. This could increase the likelihood of immersion and reduce your abilities during any rescue. Do not fall in the cam while pissed. There you go, British Rowing. Summarize that for you much better. If in doubt, don't go out. If in doubt, cut your outing short. You know, stick to the reach. You know, go get a bank party even though you don't strictly need one. But if you've thought of all of those things and you still don't think it's safe, yeah, don't go out. So there have been a couple of things here on what do you have with you in the boat. Let's see what's coming up next. More tables of risk assessment. Now is possibly a good time to go through useful things to carry with you. Stop screen sharing. Now I can see the chat. Fantastic. Oh, can you stand up in the cam? Yes, really, yes, you can. So I'm talking in general here. Pragmatically with the cam, it varies from actually out of your depth, chest height and knee high. There are bits on the meadow side of the reach where you will ground your blades right now. You will probably find it easier to get back in the boat from there than you would from the hard. But again, if you're off on your own down by the bridge, you might find a spot that you can't stand up in. So we'll come to what to do about actually being in the water later. Yes, merino wool is great. Swimming practice, more about being comfortable in the water than swimming to safety. 100% yes. If I hadn't said it enough already, stay with the boat. The boat will float. Even the oars will float. If you strike out for the shore, you may not float. Only abandon the boat if it's an even worse idea. If it is sinking or about to get mown down by motorboats or some equally unlikely event, under the path of a falling drone, I don't know. By and large, you get the boat and yourself to safety. We'll come to that later. Right now, handy things to carry with you. I can strongly recommend getting a dry bag of about that kind of size. So these ones with the roll top are, when you close them properly, they are buoyant. They trap air inside them. So if it does go in, you stand a good chance of getting it back. I would always advise clipping it around something in the boat just to make sure it doesn't float off. And this is where you realize I carry so much junk around with me. If we ignore all the tools, there is a roll of tape, wide variety of tools, rigger jigger, which I think is borrowed. I can run a list of these through for you. But the three things you really do want is a bracket for a speed coach. No, what am I carrying that around for? Seriously. Things you do want: charged mobile phone. Mine is sat here on charge. I always carry a space blanket. Virtually nothing to that little bit of tin foil. Not tin foil, it's very high-tech aluminium. But if you wrap that around your torso, you will be very much warmer going home. And if you are so cold you can't, row the boat home, wrapping yourself in that while you wait for help will be a huge benefit, all for that much weight in the boat. The other thing I have, which I made myself and should make another batch of, is this. It is a list of where ambulances can access the cam, or at least the bit down to Bates Bight and back. On the towpath side, Cantabs, the Penny Ferry at Fen Road. They can access it at the railway bridge. It's quite a narrow, just the Cantab side of the railway bridge. There is a gate that they can get into. Outside of Grassy, there is a path up to Fen Road, and then Bates Bight. Yeah. And I've got another list where you can get on from the other side. I will run off and laminate a few of those and leave them for anyone who needs them, because you would feel remarkably foolish on the phone to the emergency services going, I'm not sure where I am. I'm on first post reach. Do you know where that is? Yeah. Postcodes and OS map references there. I also have one of just about every kind of nut and bolt you might need in the bottom here, because few things worse than having a rigger work loose at the wrong end of the cam. Right. Put some of this back away, except for the bits that I have literally no idea why I'm carrying around with me. Boom. There we go. I will list the things that make sense rather than everything I carry around, because when you're coaching sessions, particularly if you're coaching an 8, that is 8 people who could break anything on the boat. It pays to have one of everything. Right. Hang on, back to the screen share. Zoom is being quite annoying about hiding the chat while I'm talking. So if you want to come off mute and go, "Oi, Dave," that's probably the easier way to get questions answered. Yes, you will be recorded. Boom. Where were we? Yeah, we are still on ways to avoid getting hypothermia from going in the water or just sitting at Bates Bight in the freezing cold. Be aware of changing conditions. You should be aware of that. Yep. Try and remain in your boat if at all possible. I hadn't thought of that. If you do capsize, stay with the boat. Yeah. Swim the boat to shore, sit on top of the boat, stay with the boat. On the cam, largely irrelevant. If you go off and row on tideway, very, very important indeed. Dum-dum. Complete a thorough risk assessment, I just know. Use your common sense and don't do anything silly. Most of this is stuff that I have been doing while you've been novices. You have implicitly been doing on your own as you go out to on outings as you get more experience. Manage risks to reduce them to an appropriate level. That could be more generic. A lot of this we've discussed. A lot of this is for coaches who are training people. Plan sessions to reduce the likelihood of immersion. I like to think I've done that. I've not tipped many of you in often. In all seriousness, if you are a scholar who never goes in and never even gets close, then you haven't been trying hard enough. You will at some point have a combination of things that causes you to go upside down and the world to go green and blubby. And this is why we talk through this. Ideally, it wouldn't happen in the depths of winter, but it's not something you can 100% control. Identifying and controlling risk, not making it go away completely. Yep, check your equipment. Coaching from a launch. I'd love to be able to coach from a launch. It sounds great. Should the driver fall overboard, another person can operate it? Yep, that is valid. That is valid. And again, there, carry enough space blankets to cater for the crew. I probably should go and buy 8 space blankets and make sure I have all of them, because if an 8 does go in, it'll be impressive, but they will all need to be warm and dry as quickly as possible. This is mostly what we've been discussing. Have a plan, make sure you're being sensible. Don't go out when you're not fit, particularly in a single. You know, if you've got the back end of the flu and aren't really concentrating, maybe do an erg, a gentle erg. You don't particularly want to train hard through virus. There's a good one. Think through some scenarios before going out. What would you do if a collision led to an immersion? Now I haven't gone through what to do about going in yet, but you want to think about where the bank would be if you're at the dit and spin zone, for example, and someone goes by without remotely asking whether to go by, clips your blade, and in you go. What are your options? Those of you who've done my sort of rower to Cox course will know I'm all about have options, have a plan, have a backup plan. If you went in at randomly chosen point, where's your nearest bank? Where's your nearest access? Where can you get a throw line? Worth thinking through. Right. Would you look at that? Practice using a throw bag. There is a video on that later on. We can go through that. Different types of life jacket, buoyancy aid. Train individuals in what to expect and what action to take in the event of a capsize. Tick. Make sure you're fit to coach. If you are not fit to coach through alcohol or drugs, you should not be coaching. They really do bang on at this. I wonder if they've had... Normally, if you see something very specific like that, it's because it's happened before. Anyway, I'll move on from that. If in doubt, do something about it. Coaches need to maintain supervision. Coach correct way of getting in and out of the boats. That makes sense. Fully charged phone, space blankets. You're starting to get a theme here. There are ways to take an already low risk and make it lower. More like it. What should you do upon immersion? So, deal with the initial cold shock. As I've been banging on about, it is important to know what the effects of the cold can be. Try and keep your face out of the water, easier said than done, but keep a hold of the boat, stay calm, get your breathing under control. All right. That was thing one of cold water. That was the breathing. Thing 2 was the muscles freezing up and the hypothermia. Get yourself out of the water. If you can't find the bank, you can't get back in the boat, clamber onto the upturned hull. Generally on the cam, if people see a rower sitting on an upturned hull, they're going to ask if you're okay. You know, there will be help coming along soon. But you want to make sure you're out of the boat to give yourself as much time as you can. Stay with the boat. Cold water impairs your ability to swim no matter how good a swimmer you are. Those of us who jump into cold water for fun, I'm sure will confirm that. Stay with the boat. Stay with the boat. Stay with the boat. Yeah. Get out of the water, have a plan, tell someone you have been in the water. We've gone through all of this. Again, you know why we're doing that. Don't get hypothermia. Don't get caught out by going, I think I'm okay, I'll go home on my own. Yeah, better safe than sorry. Boom, boom, boom. Yeah, make sure someone knows. Yeah, if you have inhaled any water, that's a key. Either nasty bugs or, you know, breathing difficulties, that's a key to, you might get worse. Immersion drill. We will indeed do that at some point when I can figure out. Here's one. Re-entering a boat from the water can be difficult. You need to practice it as part of a drill to experience it for yourself, particularly if this is the preferred or best option for your environment. On the cam, it really isn't. There is nowhere you're more than 30 seconds from a bank. By far and away, the most likely option is you're going to paddle yourself to the bank, you're going to get onto the bank, you're going to empty the boat out of water, you're going to get in from the bank. All right. British Rowing don't actually have a video showing how to get back in the boat from the water, because they'd rather people just got to the side than sit there recapsizing a boat over and over again while getting steadily colder. That said, it's not that difficult if you've practiced it, if you've done it in the warm, in a low pressure environment. And there are a couple of places on the cam where it is a useful tool to have in your toolbox. So I will very naughtily show you the video on how to do it, despite BR not having one. Most appropriate method is used at your own venue. Yes, swim to the bank, or swim the boat to the bank. Coaches, yeah, keep a close eye on people. They are banging on this drum pretty hard, but these are the points you need to know. Work to get the rowers out of the water. Keep an eye on them after they've come out of the water. Make sure they don't become hypothermic. Stay with them. Prevention is better than cure. No kidding. Right. Yeah, that's about it. They have been a little bit light so far. It may be coming up later, but preventing a flip is significantly better than getting out of it again. We drill all what I like to call the eventualities drills, the blades in drills, the blades up, hand behind you. We do the emergency stops, and we look around and we shout at other people. And I will get you to practice all of these things, even the shouting, in a controlled environment, so that you'll do them naturally if some half-wit in a four comes around the wrong side of the river. It'll happen. You'll deal with it. Okay. I literally do mean I'm going to teach you how to shout, by the way. I'm going to stand people at each end of an 8 and see how difficult it is to make yourself heard by the cocks. I can do it, but I've been practicing a lot. Right. So this is the bit I had mentioned was going to talk about hypothermia. There are a lot of symptoms here. I won't bore you with all of them. Important to note, hypothermia can affect anyone. We've all done the head races, right, over the winter, where you do your warm-up and then you spin to marshal and then you sit there for half an hour. Yeah. If you race in a single, they set the slowest boats off last. I've been there for 45 minutes. I was actually doing 360s just to keep the muscles moving. Oh, sorry. I keep scrolling and forgetting that that's probably making you all dizzy. So yeah, thing to watch out for everyone. Be nice to your cocks. Watch out for your cocks. Bring your cocks a warm drink. Dum dum dum. Yeah, there are the list of symptoms. Severe hypothermia. Yeah, if people can't move anymore and their muscles are rigid, we all agreed you should probably be calling an ambulance. Yeah, I thought so. If people aren't responding when you say, "Oi, Dave, you still with me?" You should be calling an ambulance. The only interesting one there is when the shivering stops. Okay? If you are so the shivering is just your muscles contracting as quickly as they can to pump, to wake the body up to generate heat. If they get fatigued and can't shiver anymore, that doesn't mean you got warmer. It means you ran out of ability to shiver. If someone has stopped shivering but still clearly cold, that is a sign to watch out for. Again, you'll be very unlucky if you get this far. You know where it is. There are a pile of mild hypothermia. So some of these are really very mild. I'm cold, I'm tired, I'm shivering. That just sounds like Sunday morning to me. The slightly more irrational behavior, yeah, that sounds like Sunday morning. Slurred speech sounds like Saturday night. So it's a collection of all of these. Okay. If you start blue lips and nails, it's a really good indicator that someone's circulation is not doing what it should. Fast pulse, likewise. Disorientation, poor concentration. Again, some of this is just describing Sunday morning, but the more of this is happening and the more cold people are looking, the more you need to start thinking, put an extra layer on that person and sit them in the warm until they're good to go home. Okay? If you recognize this in yourself, again, might be time to put your hand up and say, "Sorry, coach, I'm freezing cold. Can we cut the outing short?" If the coach says no, we have a bigger problem. But yeah, I'll email those around. You can review them if you really want. Again, if you're doing the St. John's first aid course, they go into more detail on that. How to reduce the risk of hypothermia. We're all grown-ups. We all know to put layers of clothing on, really. Is there anything particularly interesting there? Yeah, layers of clothing, wind chill. That's going in the stating the bleeding obvious. Coxers should wear waterproof trousers. Wear enough layers of clothing. There's not an awful lot of interest here. Pardon me. Dum dum dum. Have a hat. You want to get ahead, get a hat. One that is worth noting here, nutrition and hydration. You do still sweat, and dehydration and lack of blood sugar is not going to help you deal with the cold. Make sure you're still drinking, make sure you're still eating. If you're doing multiple outings in a day, bring a thermos. If you are dehydrated and hungry and hypothermic, you're not going to have a good day anyway. Let's be honest. Risk of hypothermia when coaching. Yeah, this is kind of my problem, not yours. Yeah, keep individuals active. That's more like it. Dealing with mild hypothermia. Insulate and rewarm. You go. Give them some extra layers of clothing, put a hat on them, take them into a nice warm building. So far, so obvious. Dum dum dum. So I'm going to say not alcoholic. I know there's the image of the St. Bernard's mountain dog with the cask of brandy around its neck. Please don't do that. Yeah, keep assessing their temperature. You could later immerse them in a lukewarm bath or shower. This, again, the Royal Yachting Association has had a word here. If you are properly cold, remember right back at the top, your body has shut down all the blood supply to the limbs to protect those nice, useful organs. All right. If you then dunk someone in a nice warm bath, it's going to open all the capillaries on the arms and legs up, and the blood's going to start flowing again. If you're actually cold enough that it makes a difference, you probably don't want to do that, because now nice cold blood is going to circulate around all those lovely organs. So once people have warmed up enough that they are just cold rather than actually sort of bleary-eyed hypothermic, then they can have a nice warm shower to warm up the rest of the way. Basically, it's wrap people up. Even if they've got wet layers of clothes on, wrap them up. Right. Here we go. This is what I was going to lead on to anyway. Victims who are conscious, rational, and capable of recounting their experiences. Yeah. Can you remember what day it is? It's not a bad question. Generally require the removal of wet clothes. Only do that in a sheltered environment. If you're in cold, wet, or windy conditions, like, January, don't take those layers of clothing off. Remember, there's still some warmth in the water trapped in that nice merino wool. Don't take that off just to put another layer on that's probably still cold. All right, wrap people up, get them back to the boathouse, get them warm. Once you're out of the wind chill, put a spare set of clothes on, let them warm up then. Again, Royal Yachting Association agrees with that. I'm inclined to believe them on exposure to cold water. I feel that's something they know. Yeah, hot sweet drinks, rest in a warm environment. It is literally telling you to get someone to make you a cup of tea. If you can't get a free cup of tea out of this, I can't help you. Environment not exceeding 22 degrees. Again, we're not trying to microwave people back up to temperature, just letting them warm gradually. Again, this is for people who are actually in a bad way, can't feel the toes, kind of cold, just cold. Go ahead and warm up. I assume the sweet drinks must be so you get a bit of sugar back in you, just to provide a bit of energy. Although the very next thing they say is if you have diabetic rowers, don't give a diabetic a cup of tea with free sugars. Stating the blinding obvious. I didn't actually know that diabetics can't convert glucose as efficiently as non-diabetics. But there it is, British Rowing says so. Severe hypothermia, again, do a first aid qualification rather than take 4 bullet points here. But yeah, if someone is in that bad a way, get an ambulance or even a Coast Guard. Summary. So the dangers associated with falling into cold water, we know that's bad, but generally, if you're going to have problems, it's going to be that initial gasp. Okay. Important thing to take away is that will go away. Hang on to the boat, keep your head above the water, then have a plan to deal with the hypothermia. Remember the thing back up. You've got a minute to finish gasping, 10 minutes to get yourself out of the water, an hour to get yourself warm and dry. Yeah. Avoid falling in the first place. I cannot disagree in the slightest. Have a club plan to deal with it. And I don't know where this randomly came from. Stay still to reduce the loss of buoyancy. The only thing I can assume is that that's Yachting Association again. If you're hanging on to the boat waiting to be rescued, don't flail around. Again, with this, water is a good insulator. If you hold still, the water around you warms up a little bit. That is pretty dramatic. That is, you are stuck in the middle of the Thames waiting for a rescue launch, kind of. thing to do. I don't know why they put that in the summary, but there you have it. Right, many, many more sources, Health and Safety Executive, Royal Lifeboats Institute, all people who very much like you to not get hypothermia. So you are more than welcome to go away and read up later. They even give you a bibliography. Cool, happy days. All right, stop screen sharing. Let me see if, yeah, and I can see the chat again. Cool. I'm going to take a break because I've been talking non-stop for an hour. How are people feeling? Anyone want to come off mute and give some feedback on that? No, you're all being recorded.
I'm mostly just because I'm 1 hour ahead now in Norway. So I'm kind of just wondering how long you plan on going tonight.
That was going to be the next question. The next thing to move into is the capsize drill, how to get out of the boat, all that good stuff. But I am more than happy to do that next time. There's several people couldn't make this session, and will be interested in the next one, and this leads into that. So I'm more than happy to finish off with questions and then call this quits. But I'll take opinions from anyone else.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good idea. The information looked very familiar. I realised it reminded me of the Duncan Goodhue thing, because it was it's the same kind of stuff we covered with the Royal Yachting Association powerboat emergency, rescue. What happens if you fall in? So it's very, very similar to that information. So I can see, yeah, there's a lot of similarities between that and falling in off a yacht.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad that all the various British powerboating and British rowing and British yachting have all put their heads together and had the same ideas. It's nice when that happens. Okay. So I will send the that thing around if you wish to review it at your leisure. More than happy to take questions now, email or WhatsApp later. Otherwise, I will pause this and figure out how to deal with the sending the recording around. Everyone happy with that?
Yeah, I think most of my questions would be about getting back in the boat.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, whereabouts on the cam you fall in. Because especially after helping Laura back in, I just thought, I don't know what I would do if I was on my own.
Indeed, yeah. Yeah, we'll go over that later, but I think BR seems to think, and I kind of agree, that it helps to know what's going to happen to you if you go in, and then apply that to, and how do I deal with that? I found this quite useful when I was doing it anyway. Everyone happy? Awesome. Thank you very much, folks. I guess I'll run the same one next week and we'll see who else we get.
Are you going to do the capsize